Welcome back to the Classic and Current Gaming Podcast, a weekly podcast where we look at the history and development of video games from all time. I'm your host, RxDude22, and this is Season 2, where we're looking at all the games being used in Season 7 of the Retro Gaming League. The Retro Gaming League is a friendly competition where pages come together and play a different retro video game each week. You can see all that information on Facebook. Links to the runs and everything are right there for you. But let's get to the podcast. This week's game is from the Sega Genesis. It's a fun platforming game called Kid Chameleon. Little shorter episode, didn't find a lot of information on this, but I'll give you what I got. Let's dive right into it. Kid Chameleon is a 1992 platform game developed and published by Sega, released for the Sega Genesis. In the game, a boss character with artificial intelligence in a virtual reality video game begins abducting players, and the main protagonist, Casey, goes in to beat the game and rescue them. He does this by using masks to shapeshift into different characters or to use different abilities. It was later released in Japan as Chameleon Kid. After its initial release in 1992 for the Genesis, it was later re-released a number of times in the 2000s, including part of the Sega Smash Pack 2 for the PC in 2000, the Sega Genesis collection for the PlayStation Portable and PlayStation 2 in 2006, as a digital release on the Wii's Virtual Console in 2007, Sonic's Ultimate Genesis collection for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 in 2009, and for the Sega Forever service in 2017. Gameplay. The player, as Kid Chameleon, progresses through a series of levels containing an array of deadly enemies and obstacles. Most levels contain a flag, which is the primary goal of each level, from which the player progresses to the next level. However, a number of teleporters throughout the game can warp the player not only to different places in the same level, but also to different levels, and sometimes to an entirely different path to the game. At the end of the game, Kid fights and defeats the final boss, Heady Metal. Kid Chameleon contains 103 levels, of which only about half are on the main path, traversing levels only by flags. 32 of these 103 levels are smaller, unnamed levels simply called Elsewhere. Despite the game's considerable length, there is no password system or other method of saving the game, although re-releases and compilations and the Virtual Console include their own save features. There are several bonuses that can be earned at the end of certain levels, in which the flag is touched, including beating a time limit, not getting hit, and not collecting any prizes. As Kid Chameleon moves through the game's levels, he gains access to masks that alter him into different characters. Each character has different special abilities and varying number of hit points. Collecting a mask that the player is already wearing will restore its health. The sheer amount of variety in gameplay due to the various characters is part of what gives Kid Chameleon such an addictive style. Few levels repeat the same structure, and they usually have specific strategies and characters to be beaten. In addition to the offensive abilities of each form, the Kid can also defeat enemies by jumping on them, although he may take damage from some enemies by doing so. Each form can also make use of diamond powers that require diamonds collected in the game to use. Access by pressing A plus start. Players lose life if Kid Chameleon loses all his hit points in human form, is crushed, falls into bottomless pits over lava, touches the drill wall which appears in certain levels, or if time runs out. Extra lives and continues can be found in the game, with additional lives awarded for every 50,000 points. The game was released in North America in March of 1992, in Japan of May 29, 1992, and also in the European Union in 1992. It was developed by Sega, director Graham Bayliss, designers Broderick Macareg, Hoyt Ng, Bill Dunn, Steve Wojta, with programmers Mark Cerny, Steve Wojta, Bill Willis, BC Chu Lee, Scott Chandler. Artists were Craig Stitt, Yasushi Yamaguchi, Alan Ackerman, Brenda Ross, Paul Micah, and the composer was Mark Miller. Characters of the game. Kid Chameleon, also known as Casey, is the protagonist and playable character of the game, who takes on numerous forms by collecting masks. Unlike most games, the default character has a benefit advantage over other characters. being if the player cannot jump over a block whilst on the edge of the block, the player can grab onto it and get on top of it. Berserker, with a horned helmet, uses his horn as weapons to charge up, destroying enemies and blocks in his way. Cyclone, with a winged helmet, is a superhero who can spin fast enough to turn into a cyclone in order to fly. Cyclops, with a futuristic visor, has a ray beam which can reveal hidden blocks and can use a fatal beam to harm enemies. Iron Knight, with a knight's helm, can climb walls and break through the ground. He also has an additional 2 hit points due to the fact that this form is covered in armor. Juggernaut, with a skull mask, rides in a tank and shoots skull bombs. Maniacs, with a hockey mask, has an unlimited supply of throwable axes. Micromax, with a giant fly head, can cling to walls and is small enough to get to areas other forms cannot. Unlike most forms, Micromax has 2 downsides. He moves slower and jumps lower. Red Stealth, with a samurai's kabuto, is a very agile character who wields a katana and can attack downward. Red Stealth jumps further up than other transformations, along with having a quicker walk-run speed. Skycutter, with a skating helmet, rides on a hoverboard and can flip gravity back and forth in order to fly around. Skycutter is the quickest form in terms of movement. While in the form, the player cannot stop movement, making it impossible to stay still. And the big baddie of the game, Heady Metal, is the primary antagonist and only boss enemy. He is an AI who escaped from the arcade game Wildside and began capturing the kids who played it. Heady Metal is a giant disembodied head who can be defeated by jumping on him. Reception of the game. Mega placed the game at number 35 in their top Mega Drive games of all time. Megatech magazine said it was a letdown by the lack of challenge. Sega Force gave the game a review score of 82%, praising the game's graphics, game music, and citing the game's similarities to the Mario and Sonic games and stating, "Great platform action, but only for fans of the genre." Console XS gave Kid Chameleon an overall score of 89 out of 100. They praised the game having constant variety because of the main character's ability to change persona. The 4 reviewers of Mega Play gave very positive reviews praising the gameplay, calling it, quote, very concise, and praised the levels, the power-ups, graphics, and game music. They felt Kid Chameleon was similar to other action games, and one reviewer felt the game, quote, get to be monotonous after a while. Mancy Games praised the graphics, controls, and the gameplay, and praised the ability to swap abilities, saying that feature separates that game from what it's inspired by. The reviewer found Kid Chameleon being similar to Super Mario Bros., and the only criticism the reviewer had is the game does not have a save or password system. Legacy of the game. The game is included in Sega Genesis collection for the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation Portable. It was released for the Virtual Console in Japan on May 22nd, 2007, North America on May 28, 2007, and Europe on June 1st, 2007. The game has also appeared in Sonic's Ultimate Genesis collection for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. In 1993, a Kid Chameleon comic strip ran from issues 7 through 12 in the Fleetway publication Sonic the Comic. Later in 1995, another strip from issues 54 through 59 called Back to Unreality was run. All information here was provided by Wikipedia. And that'll bring episode 16 of the Classic and Current Gaming Podcast to its conclusion. You can catch the podcast various different ways. We have a video presentation of it on YouTube. You can also listen to us on Spotify and other podcast listening platforms as well. We also have additional live gaming content on YouTube and on Twitch. You can catch us at twitch.tv/Classic and Current Gaming for live content. We have recorded content on YouTube of gameplays and, of course, the podcast. Next week, we're looking at a different game. We're going to be doing Metroid Prime Pinball for the next podcast. It's been RxD22 from the Classic and Current Gaming Podcast signing out. Keep on gaming, be good to each other, and you'll hear or see me on the next podcast. Everybody have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Take care.